Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Purvajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Purvajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad. Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, I think we can turn the heat off now. Chris, you know how to turn the heat off? Go ahead. I think it's not that cold, and now that everyone's here, we got all these heaters here in the form of human bodies. I think we'll be fine. Okay, we will be on page 167 today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chad, you know how to turn this down a little bit? Okay, very good. Brown one. Okay. On this 5th day of December, 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 3 entitled Karma Yoga, text 31 at the bottom of page 167. Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto anasuyanto muchyante te api karma bihi ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karma bihi ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karma bihi ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karma bihi. Okay, at the end. Ye me matamidam nityam anushchintanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karma bihi. Who wants to jump in? Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karma bihi. Okay, you're on. Yeah? Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karma bihi. Chad. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karma bihi. David. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karma bihi. Anyone else on the men's side? Ladies? No? Okay. Anyone online?
Ye me matamidam nityam.
Ye me matamidam nityam
Anutishtanti manavaha.
anutishtanti manavaha
Shraddhavanto nasuyanto.
shraddhavanto nasuyanto
Muchyante te karma bihi.
muchyante te karma bihi. Word by word. Just read along. Yea, those who, may, my, matam, injunctions, idam, these, nityam, as an eternal function, anutishtanti, execute regularly, manavaha, human beings, shraddhavantaha, with faith and devotion, anusuyantaha, without envy, muchyante, become free, te, all of them, api, even, karma bihi, from the bondage of the law of fruitive actions. Translation. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully, without envy, become free from the bondage of fruit of actions. Purport. The injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom, and therefore is eternally true without exception. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. There are many philosophers who write comments on the Bhagavad Gita but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruit of action. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord. But because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So this chapter is entitled Karma Yoga. Now karma is of course action, and yoga is linking. So this is a process of linking our action to Krishna and thereby being released from the bondage of previous activities. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness that we learn, and that is that we are souls, we're spiritual beings, we're not these bodies. And this body is, like I like to say, is a very short chapter in a very long book. We've had many lives before, and we'll have future lives, hopefully, in the spiritual world, one life. But the idea is that when we turn away from Krishna and we try to exploit this material energy, material energy is also Krishna's energy. But we want to be enjoyers and controllers on our own. That's the what you would call the original sin, or that's what brings us here. So then what happens? So then we get, Prabhupada said in the 9th canto that you get born as Brahma first. But clearly all Brahmas don't go back to Godhead, because here we are. And so you can become degraded. You become attached to trying to lord it over the material energy, and then you come down, down, down. And so all the countless living beings in this world, Prabhupada gave us this quote from the scripture, there's 8,400,000 different species. Now that word species is not the same as what is taught in biology in college. But it's varieties. And we know them. It's not a mystery. There's so many insects and birds and so many fish in the ocean, and different varieties of human beings also. And countless samples of them. I mean, that's just the varieties. Then there's the, so many in the same species, right? Like human beings. So it's a vast living world that we're in. And there's also so many inanimate things that are not conscious. So what is our experience in this world? Just like ordinary experience without any Krishna consciousness. Well, people would say, yeah, there are ups and downs. There are ups and downs. Sometimes I'm happy I've got it together, and sometimes bad things happen. I know it's a struggle this way and that way. So that's certainly true, but ultimately it's a life without any spiritual dimension to it. If you're just living a material life according to material aspirations and experiences and ideas and all this different, then it's a life ultimately of defeat. Because if it's not a mystery that as you get older, life becomes more tenuous, right? Health is not, as robust as it used to be. And everything that you build in this world, relationships, bank balance, fame, property, whatever it may be, which you may consider to be positive, and this is a part of your success, but ultimately, it's not a mystery. It's all gone. When you leave the body, all of that, like I think the bank account, there's a name on it. That name is not your name, it's the name of your body, right? and you may have it all your life, you know, and it grew it very nicely, you know. But then when you leave the body, and this is the first lesson, and if you don't believe in that, then there's no purchase. That when you leave the body, you don't just dissolve, you don't disappear. There's another life. Just as in this body, we've already transmigrated so much. Nobody here is 5 years old, so, but you can remember, maybe when you're 5, 10, right? You can remember some things when you're 10, I can remember a few things. So we were clearly in that body. We had a different mind, we had a different body. So what's the same? The jiva soul, the soul, who we are, that was the same. And we're passing through these different bodies, even in this one body. It's so radically different, my 5-year-old body from my 30-year-old body, from my 76-year-old body. You know, they're different bodies, basically. But I feel I'm the same person, and I can remember some things from back then, you know, there's some continuity. So the idea is that even just without knowing anything about transmigration of the soul to another body, just in this one body, we can kind of intuit that, yeah, I've had a lot of I'm the same person. I'm the conscious being here that knows something about what's going on in the body and experiencing in so many different things. So then we have to approach a source of higher knowledge to understand the great mystery of death. That in one respect, it's very encouraging, this second chapter, where it's all laid out in summary. There's no death. The jayate mriyate vakadachan nayam bhutva bhavita avanabuya. For the soul, the jiva soul, every single soul, in everybody, there's never death and there's never birth. Najayate mriyate. There's no birth and no death. Najayate vakadachan nayam bhutva. And it's not that there's a whole bunch of new souls coming into being and many souls going out of being. No. We're just as eternal as Krishna is. You know, he's eternal and we're part of the spiritual energy, and it's the same. So, then the question arises, okay, well, I mean, it doesn't take any transcendental, you know, study to understand that old age and disease and death are not pleasant things. They're kind of things you try to forget about, right? And just try to enjoy with the time you have, which is foolish. But so there's this cycle of birth, and this is the order you experience, like birth, old age, disease, and death. Generally. Now sometimes you can get very sick very young, so that's not, but birth is certainly first and death is last, and in between you got old age and disease. So none of those are pleasant. We forget about birth, but you know, being cramped in the womb, it's not like you're not conscious. After 7 months, you wake up. That's why any pregnant woman will tell you, yeah, he was kicking. You want to feel him? You know, yeah. Right? They wake up. You wake up in the womb. Pretty tight in here. Not a pleasant experience. Certainly not a pleasant experience for the mother. But anyway, so there it is. So we took birth, and here we are, you know, and this is not our first birth. So those are things that an intelligent person would, if there's a way of ending those, you know, besides just becoming completely oblivious and suicide, you know, which doesn't work, then you should inquire about it. Especially since that's just the 4 basic miseries. Then you've got these other 3 categories of miseries that include birth, old age, and disease. The adhyatmic, adhibautic, adhidaivik. So what are those? We're familiar with them completely, maybe not the names. Let's start with the most intractable and hair-raising, adhidaivik. You know, we're sitting here. When I first came here, back in '89, I immediately looked at where the faults were. San Andreas Fault, you know, and the dangers of volcanoes. Because I'd come from a place where it was all hurricanes. They can be very destructive. They become more destructive. But when I was in Miami, you know, the hurricane season came, and you kept very close track of the weather report, you know. And actually, a year or 2 after I left there was a huge hurricane that was bearing right down on the temple in Miami. And I called my old friend Dharma, who was the president there. I said, what are you guys doing about it? He said, well, kind of, you know, closing all the doors and everything, and we're praying. So at the last minute, the hurricane, it went south. It actually diverted. I looked, and it destroyed an Air Force base they haven't rebuilt to this day. And there was some damage to the temple, but they were able to claim something from the government, so they came out ahead. You know, Krishna protected them. But it's a danger. But you get some warning. You know, it can be very. You get some earthquakes. You don't really get any warning, right? So I checked out, and that's the danger here. And sure enough, it was about a year in. I was chanting upstairs where we have we built up those ashram rooms. There was a big room there, and there was actually the store was upstairs in those days, and you could go up there and chant your rounds. So I was chanting up there, and suddenly I felt like I was in a ship. The whole building was moving. I ran down the stairs and I looked. We had a different set of chandeliers, and they were swinging, you know. And just to show how, you know, un-Krishna conscious was, instead of running toward the deity to see if I could help, I ran out the door. And the sidewalk felt like a surfboard, you know. So I said, but then it stopped. You know, I mean, it wasn't that destructive, but it just shows you how tenuous it is here. Your life is tenuous, and those miseries, they're getting worse. Anything having to do with climate. We never had these horrific fires in Northern California that we've had the last few years. And all over, you know, the tornadoes, the hurricanes are getting stronger. So what can you do about them? Really nothing. You know, they're much stronger than, I mean, you can try to flee or get away from them, but there's not much when these things hit. So that's Adi-Daivik. Adhyatmic is just that if you have some chronic disease or you're born with it, you know, you got to live with it. It's your own body giving you trouble. And then there's Adi-Bhautik, which can be the most hair-raising. Those are other living beings giving you trouble, mostly human beings, but it can be, Prabhupada gives the example of bed bugs, yes, mosquitoes, you know, bacteria, viruses, you know, this is all and they kind of overlap, because if you get the COVID-19 virus is coming at you, well, that's Adi-Bhautik, right? But then when you get, it does its thing, you got a disease, that's Adhyatmic, your whole. Anyway, this is material life. There's little flashes of Hare Krishna. Welcome. There's little flashes of pleasure and seemingly comfort and hope and all these things, but it won't be long before one of these miseries comes at you. So those who are intelligent and who hear the Vedic literature and you hear about what spiritual life can mean, did you want to follow along? Because we're studying Bhagavad Gita. We have a book. You can sit on the bench if you like and just take the book up. Or if you like, you can sit on the floor. Okay, there you go. And we're on page, 168, right? Yeah. So the idea is that when you come in touch with this philosophy, and with Srila Prabhupada, either through his books, or I would, for good fortune, he would, you know, personally, then who's giving you information that, oh, there's this whole body of wisdom from the Vedas, Vedic wisdom. Tell the page number. Okay. That says, no, you don't, that's not everything that exists. There's another possibility of life where you can get eternal life full of bliss and knowledge. You never die, and you're never born, and you leave all of this behind. And it's not just somebody's idea or fantasy. There's a whole line of realized souls who have done that and experienced it. And there are all of these writings, you know. And most important of all, there's the means of experiencing these things. And here it is for free. Take it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's a mantra. Yeah.
Do the denizens of Goloka Vrindavan, who have graduated from this material platform to that higher,
Did they chant Hare Krishna?
times here?
Oh, did I remember the times here?
Yeah. Do they have little glimmers of, oh, I remember when I was watching this?
You know, 'cause many of them have never been here. Yeah. You know, so those who come down and go back. Prabhupada gave the idea that it's this idea of once burned, twice shy. You ever heard that? Sure. It's not that they dwell on it and they have records of it and they keep it, you know, like. But they have intimations of what it was like, and they're never tempted to do it again. And that's why Krishna says, that supreme abode of mine, once you go there, you never come back. Why would you? Having any kind of memory of this? No, thank you. I think I'll stay up here with Krishna. So it's like that, but you don't have detailed memory because that would kind of spoil it, you know. So anyway, the faith in what the spiritual master brings. We were discussing this morning, what was the context? In the class, I think it came up, this verse that Lord Chaitanya spoke. Yeah, Dharma Setu. Brahmanda Brahmite Kon Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Pasare Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. So, what that verse says, and this is spoken by Lord Chaitanya to Rupa Goswami at the beginning of his instructions. Rupa Goswami being Lord Chaitanya's prime disciple, actually. He wrote the Nectar of Devotion that we've studied. So, Brahmanda means the Anda of Brahma. And it's always important to get those diacritics right on Brahma's name. That last A, Brahma. Otherwise it's Brahma. That's the Brahma Jyoti. You see the difference. One is Brahman and one is Brahma. So it's Brahma Anda, the egg of Brahma. Why egg? Because the universe is actually a big enclosure. And there's barriers to it. We get to the edge of the universe, there's earth, water, fire, air, ether. And that covering is a lot thicker even than the inside. So it's a little place where inside, relatively speaking. So there's many Brahmas, many Brahmandas. And Brahmite means wandering. Brahmanda Brahmite Kon Bhagyavan. But the fortunate, Bhagavan means fortunate. The fortunate jiva or soul, by the mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna, they get the seed of the creeper of devotion. Now, why is it a creeper or a vine? Because you have to cultivate it just like a plant. And ultimately it bears a fruit. And that fruit is the fruit of love of God, which you can eat eternally. You see? So, what does that seed of the creeper of devotion consist of? It consists of the instructions that have come from Krishna via the pure source of the spiritual master. And it consists of the process that's given. The Hare Krishna mantra is part of that seed. And most importantly, it consists of the impartation of faith. Faith in the process, faith in the goal, faith in the spiritual master. Now, the wonderful thing about it is if you just have a little bit of faith, and a little bit of, all right, I'll try it. I'll try this chanting. If you do it sincerely, you're going to feel something. This is how Prabhupada started the movement. He had a whole, the Bowery. I mean, most of you probably have never been to the Bowery. I lived in New York area. Bowery is what now the homeless are everywhere, and every big city has its own Bowery. But in those days, if you're down and out and you're out of luck, and you went to New York and you lived on the Bowery. So the whole country, migrated there. There may be a few other places like that. Huh?
It's extremely chic now.
Oh, really? It's been gentrified, huh? Yeah, that happens. Well, in those days, anyway, it was the last place on earth that you'd expect to find a guru teaching yoga, but that was what Prabhupada had to deal with. So he made the best use. He had a little drum that he had gotten, half a bongo drum. And he was beating that drum and chanting Hare Krishna. And the sincerity, like you've heard that famous record they made. And that was Prabhupada, He was chanting full fervor and devotion. And they were answering as much as possible. And if you do that, then you feel, high. That was and so they had a little pamphlet, because this was the hippie days, this was the middle of the 60s. Prabhupada, can we make a little flyer and say, with the tagline, stay high forever, but we'll distribute here in the Lower East Side. By that time they relocated to a few blocks different. Say, yeah, make that, because that's what everyone's interested in, stay high forever, So it's the sweetest high, and there's no coming down, there's no, bad reaction, and it's all very wholesome. And so on the basis of that, a certain number of those people became really inquisitive and ready to study and ready to hear and to learn the philosophy behind it. Because it's important to nourish your faith with the philosophy that we're hearing from the Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada, there was no printed Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada would read from a Bhagavad Gita he had translating as he went. And of course, we had the first canto. But there were really no books for everybody, It was just Prabhupada and back to Godhead. But the faith was nourished by practice, by discipline, by hearing, and that watered the seed, and the creeper grew. And before long, you had a whole cadre of devotees who were serious. They were because they were chanting regularly, and they got initiated, and they became committed. to Prabhupada personally. And when he got sick, you know the history. I don't know if you know the history. He had a stroke in May '67 after he came back from the West Coast, which is a whole different development there. Very successful. He came back and he was fired up. But then, his health caught up with him, and he had this stroke, and he went to the hospital, and it was touch and go for a while. But he came out, and finally, after a stint on the West Coast, where there was the first Rath Yatra, which he couldn't attend because the driving was too difficult, he went back to India. And there's this whole, if you could come and sit on this side, this is the men's side. Yeah. There you go. Anywhere there. You can sit on a chair or, whatever you want. Then you can imagine how it was. Prabhupada had already had, I think, 3 or 4 centers. There was New York, there was San Francisco. I don't know if LA had started yet, I don't think. But Montreal. That's the whole, so he had to leave the country to renew his visa and all that stuff. But anyway, then he had to go back, and there was a question, is he going back to really recuperate his health, or is he just going back to pass away in Vrindavan, where he came from, So devotees were writing him these desperate letters, please come back, please come back. Please. And so in December of that year, '67, he came back, and the devotees were just so overwhelmed with joy, And from then the whole movement grew in the same way. So the point I'm getting at is that this is basic philosophy, is that what we read was those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Now what is that teaching? It's kind of summarized here in text 30. I'll just read the translation. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. Now we can fill in that word fight, that's his duty. We have our own duties, if we have our jobs, like that. But do it in such a way that you're doing it in the mood of sacrifice. You remember an early verse in this chapter, text 9 was the key verse. Yagyartat kamano nyatra loko yam karma bandhanaha. Tadartam karma konteya mukta sangha samachara. So yagyartat means for the sake of yajna, sacrifice. Now Prabhupada points out that in the purport that yajna is also a name for Vishnu. So work has to be done in the mood of sacrifice for Vishnu. Otherwise, whatever work you do binds you to this material world. See, when you do something, this word fruit of action is very important. This is the kind of activity, this is karma, that produces a fruit that you want to enjoy. This is normal people. When people go to work, they get the money, they need that, so that's the fruit. And they enjoy it by basically giving most of it over to the landlord. I mean, that's today's survival mode. But what Krishna is saying here is that as much as possible, of course you have to sustain your life, but you should give it over to the sake of Krishna consciousness. You should sacrifice it for Krishna. That's a big mountain to cross sometimes. But that's the idea. Otherwise, you'll be bound up by that fruit. You'll try to enjoy it, and that'll plant a seed of desire in your heart, and that karma will, and especially today, no one knows, and they perform all kinds of sinful karma. Let's go to the restaurant, fine, and you're having your steak and your hamburgers, and you're performing a tremendous sinful activity. The problem is ignorance. The sin is committed because of ignorance. You don't know the harm that you're doing to yourself and even to others by just ordinary activities in this world. But it's all recorded. And unless you do things that can neutralize those reactions, then they're going to make you suffer. You'll suffer reactions for that. And so that's one of the first benefits. Just a little chanting of Hare Krishna. You've just eradicated lifetimes of karma. You don't know, but that's the faith we have in the Shastra. Krishna is so merciful, he's so kind. And when you get free from that, it's almost like a lifting off your back of your heart, I'll tell you a story. I remember this distinctly because I was chanting quite a bit before I joined. I had a job and I was chanting. I had a hospital job. I was chanting every time I ran up on I was the guy with the oxygen, and I would sometimes try to chant in my mind as I'm pumping the oxygen, see if I could cure I had all these things. But I was doing a lot of chanting, and at one point, I remember coming out of this store and I was chanting silently, or but I was chanting Hare Krishna, and I just felt as if a whole load went off my back. I don't know, maybe, but it just felt I was lighter. I just felt so blessed by the chanting of the holy name. And I hardly knew any of the philosophy. I hadn't read the Bhagavad Gita yet or anything. So the point is that when you begin the process of devotional service, as has been given and designed by Lord Chaitanya and his followers, which is designed for us who can't sit for days and weeks, and years and meditating somewhere, it's not possible. We're not suited for extreme austerity. So the whole thing has become very simple and easy, really. But it still requires determination and faith and acceptance, And so here Krishna is kind of summing up and following the verse that we just read. One who works, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claim to proprietorship, free from lethargy, fight. But you remember the Prabhupada says in the purport, this verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. Every so often you come along these verses. So then, and those who, did we read 32 or 31? 31, yeah. So the next verse, those who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow the teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive action, which is such a great value, Free from the bondage means that, now if you just keep working and develop love for Krishna, you can go back to Godhead and be free from birth and death and old age and disease forever. That's the first inducement. Now the wonderful thing about Krishna consciousness is that this is an important motivation to become serious, because you realize, oh, I'm in this bondage, and this is a chance for me to break free, But then when you practice Krishna consciousness, after a while, that motive goes in the background. And you come to the point, hopefully, of Lord Chaitanya's verse, Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundarim, Kapitam, Va, Jagadish, Kamaye, Mama Janmani, Janmani, Shade, Bhavata, Bhaktada, Hoitaki, Tvahi. Is that the taste of bhakti, of actually serving Krishna and developing feeling for Krishna, is so sweet that it just obscures everything else. And this verse says, Lord Chaitanya is showing us how to pray. I mean, he's God himself. He doesn't need to pray like that, but he's showing us how, in the mood of a devotee. It says, wealth, women, followers, the fruits of mundane piety, liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. Now, when he says future birth, he means even liberation he doesn't care about. This is a very high state of consciousness, is that you're experiencing so much bliss and happiness from serving Krishna that that's all you want. You're not concerned with even getting free from bondage of birth and death. Now, the wonderful thing is that that's already taken care of. Even if you don't want it, you're still going to get it. But it's not your motivating factor, you see. It's just like, that's such a jewel. Kumbh Mela, you've heard of Kumbh Mela? This is once every 12 years when they have a big one? Yeah. So in what's known as Allahabad, used to be Prayag. Yeah. Well, Kashi is Benares, right? That's different, yeah. So it's huge. I mean, talk about a mela, millions, tens of millions sometimes, right? People come from all over India. At a certain time of year, it's usually early January, right? Around January. It's cold, pretty cold. And so there's a confluence of three rivers. Two of them are manifest, one is unmanifest, Saraswati River. But it's the Yamuna and the Ganges come together in Allahabad, right? And astrologically, maybe 12 years, I guess, or whatever, if you bathe at a certain time on a certain day in January, right? You've done it? He's liberated. Then you get liberation, mukti. So millions of people come in order to do that. Now, how many people can go into the same spot in the same river at the same time, right? So even they have great yogis coming down from the Himalayas, right?
I haven't done it in a particular time. I've done it in some normal, different day.
A different day. Yeah. But I mean, my understanding, I've never been there, is that on that day that yogis come down from the Himalayas, different groups of them. And they're very powerful. They look like they're 30, but they're actually 300 years old. These things are happening for real. So, and Prabhupada actually, I think at least twice, he took the devotees there. He took them there in 70, right? And Yamuna and the others were there, and they would get up early in the morning in the dark and in January and go and take a cold bath in the Ganges, it's pretty austere. And then they would chant all day, they were doing Harinam. Because they weren't going there for that. They were going there to preach to people because it's a good field for preaching and distribute prasadam. There was one devotee, I think Revatanandan, who I don't think he was a Swami yet, he became a Swami, who was his whole job the whole time, he didn't get bathed, he just cooked. He was the cook. He's cooking all the morning and all afternoon. Because Prabhupada, knew that this is a good preaching field, that a lot of books, a lot of yogis, a lot of interested people would come, But that motive becomes secondary from bhakti. Because what you're tasting, like Bilvamangal Thakur has this beautiful verse at the end of the Kṛṣṇa Karnamrita, which anyone wants the Kṛṣṇa Karnamrita, let me know. I'll tell you a story how that became manifest. But it says, Bhaktis tvahi sthidatada bhagavan yadisya daive nanak palati divya kishora murti mukti swayam mukulitanjali sevate sman dharmartha kamakata yaksamya patiksha. Which means, oh my dear Lord, one who is firmly situated in devotional service to you, Bhaktis tvahi sthidatada means firm, Bhagavan, or Supreme Lord, yadisya, if someone is that, then they'll get the fruit of that. What is that? Liberation? No. Bhakti sritada bhagavan yadisa daivedanak palati, the fruit, divya kishora murti, a vision of your beautiful adolescent form. For real. You'll reveal yourself to him. And as far as mukti goes, mukti personified, it's a female form, is standing by the door with the anjali. This, we do the pushpanjali. You've heard of the pushpanjali. Anjali is a mudra, is the hands. And it's like this, because in those hands you can have offering. It's not like the other prayers, it's like this. It's closed up. Please give me my daily bread. This is an offering. So she's ready to serve me and waiting at the door. In other words, I don't have to worry about mukti. She's already, and whatever I eat of dharma, artha, and kama, they're also ready to serve. Those are the four goals. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha, that are kind of outline the Vedic aspirations. But there's this fifth goal. You know what it is? Prema. Prema pumarto mahan. The actual maharta means the great goal of human life is love for Krishna. And it includes mukti. And whatever you need in terms of prasadam and living conditions will be given to you. Krishna will provide. I carry it myself, he says in the 8th chapter. Yoga kshema mahamyaham. For those who are always worshiping me, thinking of me. But to have that faith, that's part of surrender, that Krishna will provide. So that's also present in what we're studying now, that, if you give all your works to me, then how will I pay the rent? What am I going to do? Krishna will provide. So yes, that prayer of Brahma, don't do anything radical. Stay in your position, but add hearing. And that's what many of you are doing, You're hearing, you're reading Bhagavad Gita, and that's fine, that's perfect. So, but here he's just saying, okay, karma yoga, here's how you can get free from your karma. The more that you work for me, and the more that you chant Hare Krishna, you'll be free from all the bondage of karma from previous life. And then you'll be freer to practice more devotion and refine and develop your pure love for me, which is really the goal. All right, I don't want to take the whole class on that, but that's what we have. Any questions or comments? Okay, let's go forward. Yes, sir, but we need there's mic, because they have a big audience out on the YouTube.
Here you go, sir. Thank you. I'm curious about how this passage mentions envy and envy of Krishna. It's inconceivable to me that somebody would be envious of Krishna. Maybe you could elaborate on that.
See that? Yeah, that's up my alley, because I'm an editor for like 50 years, and so Prabhupada used a certain variety of English, And if you look up the word envy in the Oxford English Dictionary, I don't know, maybe it's as a little obsolete in the American dictionary. But envy usually means jealousy, that someone has something you want, right? And, you know. But envy can also mean just malice, means having ill will towards someone. Like Prabhupada says in the Krishna book, I remember reading this from, one should not be envious of any creature, not even an ant. Well, why should I be envious of an ant? What do they have that I want, you know? No, you shouldn't, you know, step on them if you can avoid it like that, you know. You should show concern. So that's the broader meaning of envy. And just like now we're reading a passage, another book called the Srimad Bhagavatam. You familiar with that? It's a much vaster book, and it elaborates on many of the themes in Bhagavad Gita. And so we're reading about this big demon who has just performed these incredible austerities in order to become immortal, you know. He doesn't really become immortal, but he thinks he does. It's a whole, and his whole mission in life really is to kill Vishnu, kill God, because he killed his brother, Hiranyaksha. And so he's the personification of envy toward Vishnu. Not, well, he's envious of, you know, his power and everything. But that's not the point, is that he has tremendous hate and ill will toward Vishnu. And that's what envy means in this context. So when it says, those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly. So this could also be their envy of me, because I'm God and I'm, you know, in control of everything. So that is a form of, you know, envy of God. And so, you know, that can lead to atheism. That's an expression of envy toward God, that he doesn't even exist. He's all simply an imagination. Only fools believe in God. Those are expressions of God. And Krishna describes that in the 16th chapter, the divine and demoniac natures. And what is the you know, the central description of the demons? Asatyam apatishtam te jagadahu anishvaram aparaspada sambhutam kim anyat kamahoitukam. There's no ultimate truth. There's no foundation of this world. Everything has come about by chance, you know, of meetings, and there's no God in control. Jagadahu, they declare there's no Ishvara, this God in control of this world. And how did everything come out? By chance, just meeting, you know, over millions of years, you know. And then Krishna then he imitates the demon, the mantra of the demon, the most famous part. Ishvaroham, aham bogi, siddhoham, balavan sukhi. I am the controller. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. And if you don't like it, and I'll send my mafioso after you. You know. Yeah, that's the demonic mentality. The devotee mentality is that I'm Trinadapi Sunichena. I'm very insignificant, and I need Krishna's protection as much as possible. Let me glorify him, surrender unto him, and serve him as much as possible. And that's why Kali Yuga, the Yuga we live, is actually favorable. Because it's very, if you just be realistic, you'll have a lot to be humble about. How we don't live very long, we're not that intelligent compared to, you know, and we're completely dependent, and we need Krishna's help as much as possible. Therefore, when we chant, we can chant from the bottom of our heart, please engage me in service, please protect me, please take me out of this world. Whereas someone who's, you know, a millionaire and has so many control, it's very hard to pray sincerely like that. You think I got it under control, but that's a complete illusion. You see? So this Kali Yuga is favorable in that way, in that we can easily adopt genuine humility, which is favorable, if it induces us to call out to Krishna for service, and because we're dependent on him. So that's what we should do. If you actually analyze our situation, you know, we're not in very, materially, everything is very tenuous now. You don't have to be a genius or very smart to see that. The climate is being destroyed, the economy is being destroyed, fascism's coming to America, very likely. Hare Krishna, you know, Krishna, please save me. Haribol. So that's what envy means. All right, let's read one more. 32, is it? Okay. Ye tveta rabhyasuyanto nanatushtanti me matam sarvajnanavamudangsthan viddhinashtana chetasaha. But those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. Krishna doesn't mince any words here. Purport. The flaw of not being Krishna conscious is clearly stated herein. As there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head, so there is certainly punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self and of the Supreme Brahman, Paramatma, and the Personality of Godhead, due to a vacant heart. Therefore, there is no hope of perfection of life for him. So this is common in the Gita. There'll be a very positive statement, all the benefits you get, and then, if you don't surrender to Krishna, this is what happens. And so we should take advantage of the opportunity. Sadrusham cheshtate swasya pakate gyanavanapi pakatim yanti bhutani nigraha kinkarishyati. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? Purport. Unless one is situated on the transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness, he cannot get free from the influence of the modes of material nature, as it is confirmed by the Lord in the 7th chapter, 7:14. Therefore, even for the most highly educated person on the mundane plane, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of māyā, illusion, simply by theoretical knowledge, or by separating the soul from the body. There are many so-called spiritualists who outwardly pose as advanced in the science, but inwardly or privately are completely under particular modes of nature, which they are unable to surpass. Academically, one may be very learned, but because of his long association with material nature, he is in bondage. Krishna consciousness helps one to get out of the material entanglement, even though one may be engaged in his prescribed duties in terms of material existence. Therefore, without being fully in Krishna consciousness, one should not give up his occupational duties. No one should suddenly give up his prescribed duties and become a so-called yogī or transcendentalist artificially. It is better to be situated in one's position and to try to attain Krishna consciousness under superior training. Thus one may be freed from the clutches of Krishna's māyā. So this is the same verse that I was quoting about by Brahma, where he says, Jnane priyasam udapasya namanta eva, jivanti sanmukaditam bhavadiya bhartam. That one should give up, if you're a transcendentalist, speculating, just trying to figure it out on your own, that's not going to get you anywhere. So throw it far away. Jnane priyasam udapasya namanta eva, and surrender to someone who is realized and can enlighten you with the words. Udapasya namanta eva, jivanti, live in this way. Jivanti sanmukaditam. Sanmukaditam. A sun is a saint, and mukha is a mouth. The vibration is coming from the mouths of the pure devotees. Bhavadiya vartam. He's speaking to Krishna. What are they speaking about? Your activities, your teachings, your form, name, and qualities. That's what they glorify. Sthane stita, stay in your position. Shuddhigatam, take to the path of hearing, and serve those vibrations with tanuvan manobi, with your body, mind, and words. With your body, your senses, try to execute the orders of what to do, what not to do. With your words, repeat them, and with your mind, think about them and discuss them. And in this way, prayaso ajita jita, you can conquer the unconquerable Lord. How? By developing love for him. That's the only way to conquer Krishna. Millions of demons have failed any other way. In all three worlds, this is the only way that you can conquer the Lord, by love. So that's the idea. And it begins with hearing and chanting the holy name. One very inconceivable but very important idea and understanding is that the holy name of Krishna, this is first, how's it go? Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purnak Shuddho Nitya Mukto Abhinidvan Nama Namino. So this is a very important verse about the holy name. The holy name is like a Chintamani gem. Chintamani gem transforms, it's like philosopher's stone. Whatever it touches turns to gold. So you touch the holy name with your consciousness by hearing and chanting, and it will transform your consciousness, your heart. So now we Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. All of the perfection of relationship with Krishna is realizable just by perfecting that chanting process. Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purnakshara is complete. It's a complete process of yoga. This chanting. I mean, we learned from Haridas Thakur. That's all he did. Okay, I think we got to get going. The morning, but the key phrase is at the end. Abhinatva nama namino. The name is not different from Krishna. When we chant the holy name, and the more carefully we hear, chant sincerely, we can feel Krishna's presence in that holy name, and by that presence, we're becoming purified, becoming advanced. It's such a simple process. It's free. And it's available. It's so nice to see you chanting with the bead bag, nice and serious. Bhakta Noah is chanting Hare Krishna, and it takes you all the way, you know, and it's the foundation of everything else you do. Whatever else we do, you're going to wash the pots, chant Hare Krishna while you're doing it. You know, on the altar they're chanting Krishna's name and chanting so many mantras, and so that accompaniment with the transcendental sound perfects our service. So, we've gone all different places, and I haven't given you a poem yet. All right, real quick one. Marodam marodam babarasya vibho marodam marodam vadanam marodam marogandi madhusmita metadaho marodam 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 marodams. Krishna Karnamrita. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form. Sweet is still his face, so fair. But his honey-scented gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. And with that thought, let's move to the deities and have our kirtan. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. And we have one more this week. You're all invited tomorrow. And we'll continue. And at the end of this chapter, there's a section that's very important for us. I look forward to it. So, how far did we get? 34. We're on 34? Yeah, right, we did 33, right? Okay, 34. Gotta push this in. All right. There you go.